The forest was silent, heavy with mist and morning. Somewhere beyond the trees, a sound broke through, not a roar, but a cry, faint, strained, wounded. Before we start, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep bringing you true wildlife rescue stories like this one. In a forgotten corner of the wilderness, an old metal cage sat half buried in dirt and moss. Inside, a massive grizzly bear paced unevenly. His fur was matted, tangled with dry blood. A rusted snare cut deep into his leg, swollen, infected. He'd been trapped for days, maybe longer. He wasn't fighting anymore. He was trembling. His breath came in short, shallow bursts. Every movement was slow, like it cost him something. No one had seen him in weeks. No one had come for him until now. Through the fog, footsteps approached. A woman's voice, gentle but alert, whispered to the others there. "Did you hear that?" The bear froze. In that moment, he didn't look like a predator. He looked like a soul completely broken by fear. Leaves crunched softly beneath heavy boots as the team moved through the dense forest, their breath fogging in the cold morning air. The woman in the lead, Mara, kept her eyes low, scanning for tracks, blood, anything that didn't belong. She held up a hand. "Stop." She whispered, "Silence." Then, faint again, the weak growl, followed by a slow, dragging scrape of metal against earth. The team shifted direction, cutting through thick underbrush. Branches snapped underfoot, ferns slapped their legs. The forest felt older here, forgotten. Mara's flashlight caught something, a glint not natural, metal. They stepped into a small clearing, overgrown with bramble and shadowed by old pine. And there it was, the cage, large, rusted, its bars bent in places, gnawed at by something desperate. Inside, the grizzly stood frozen, staring straight at them. His chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. He was massive, or had once been. Now his ribs jutted out like broken shelves. His fur was dull, filthy, and crusted with blood. Mara took a slow step forward. The bear's head dipped, but he didn't retreat. He didn't snarl, not really. Just a low, broken sound from somewhere deep in his throat, more a whimper than a warning. Mara's eyes locked on the snare wound. A length of wire, thin and rust colored, was buried deep into his back leg. The flesh around it was swollen and blackened. Every time the bear shifted, it cut in deeper. Her breath caught. "My God, he's been suffering for weeks." Behind her, one of the rangers spoke quietly. "It looks like an illegal trap. Poachers, they probably forgot him, or didn't care." Mara stepped closer. Her voice softened almost to herself. No one cared. The bear didn't move. His eyes followed her, tired and glassy. Not feral, just frightened, resigned. She knelt slowly, staying just out of reach of the cage. Her hands rested on her knees. "Hey, big guy," she murmured. "You're not alone anymore." He blinked once. Slowly, she could see every detail now, the mud caked to his paws, the cracked pads, the faint tremble in his shoulders. His whole body looked like it had given up before his heart had. Mara turned to the others. "He's malnourished. That wound's septic. We don't move soon. He won't make it through the night." One of the younger rangers looked uneasy. "You sure you want to get involved? We've got 3 other calls, and he's unpredictable." Mara didn't hesitate. "I've seen what happens when we wait. He's scared, not dangerous. We're getting him out of here." She stood and looked back at the bear. He didn't growl, didn't move, just watched. And for the first time, Mara felt something unexpected in that gaze, not anger. Trust fragile, but there. She gave a small nod, like she understood. "We've got you." The fire crackled gently as the team settled into base camp for the night. The cold had set in hard, curling under their jackets and into their bones. Most of the others sat in silence, chewing quietly, letting exhaustion speak for them. Mara crouched near the fire, staring at the dancing flames like they held the answer. Her gloves lay beside her, stained with blood and dirt. Across from her, Jonas, the senior ranger, leaned forward and sighed. "You saw that wound," he said, voice low. "It's already infected. That bear's not going to make it. Maybe it's better we let nature take its course." She didn't respond. He continued, gentler this time. "We've got our hands full, Mara. We've got those cubs from the rockslide rescue still in recovery, and now the weather's turning. You want to put people at risk for a bear that's already halfway gone?" Mara didn't lift her eyes. She reached into her pack and pulled out a small, worn envelope. Inside were photos, old rescues, a wolf with a shattered leg, a baby lynx wrapped in a towel, a mountain lion, blind in one eye, nuzzling her gloved hand. She stared at one photo longer than the rest, a black bear, barely out of cubhood, cradled in her lap, eyes full of fear. That one hadn't made it. I let one go once, she said quietly. He was just too far gone. I told myself it was nature, that we weren't meant to interfere, but I still think about him every day. She looked up, finally meeting Jonas's eyes. I'm not making that mistake again. Outside, wind tugged at the edge of the tent, making it flap like wings. The radio crackled with static. A soft beep indicated a missed transmission. Jonas exhaled slowly. You really believe he'll make it? She nodded. If we act now, if we don't wait. He's not lashing out. He's not aggressive. He's exhausted. He hasn't given up yet. He raised an eyebrow. And what about the legal end of it? That trap's unregistered. If it leads to a poacher, then we follow it, she said firmly, and we don't pretend it's not our problem. There was a beat of silence. Then Jonas leaned back, the firelight catching the edge of a reluctant smile. All right, you've got your bear. Mara allowed herself one breath of relief. Then she stood, grabbed her jacket, and walked toward the medical tent. Her voice carried over her shoulder. Start prepping the sedation kit. We move at first light. Back in the forest, the wind shifted, and far off in the dark, the bear waited unaware that help was finally on its way. The storm rolled in before sunrise. Gray skies cracked open just as the team reached the clearing. Rain pelted their gear, turning the forest floor into slick, sinking mud. Thunder grumbled low and close. Mara raised her hand, shielding her eyes. The bear was still there, exactly where they'd left him, curled now in the corner of the cage, head resting on his front paws. He didn't lift his head as they approached. Just blinked, slow and dull. Vitals look weak, said Ava, the field medic, reading from a handheld monitor hooked to a pole-mounted scanner. If we're going to move him, we need to sedate first carefully. Mara nodded, her voice tight with focus. We do this slow, quiet, no sudden moves. Jonas prepped the dart gun, a thick tranquilizer, carefully calculated for the bear's weight, injury, and condition. One wrong dose, and it could stop his heart. One sudden lunge, and it could take someone's life. Mara crouched beside the cage, speaking softly. Hey there, it's okay. We're here now. We're not gonna hurt you. The bear stirred, ears twitching at her voice. His eyes met hers again, not as wild now, but still guarded, still full of pain. The dart hissed out quiet, fast. It struck cleanly, just above his shoulder. The bear growled weakly, trying to rise, legs wobbling under his weight. He thrashed once, hitting the cage wall with a dull clang. Stand back. Jonas warned, but Mara didn't move. She stayed low, voice steady. SHHH, it's all right. You're safe now. The sedation began to take hold. The bear's movements slowed, muscles relaxing against his will. He tried to lift his head, then let it fall again. The team rushed forward. They opened the cage slowly, methodically, every step rehearsed. 3 of them moved in with the stretcher-reinforced canvas with harnesses and side handles. As they worked, Mara kept close, kneeling beside the bear's massive frame. His breathing was ragged but steady. His chest heaved, rain soaked his fur, her gloves slid as she reached out, and then she placed her hand gently on his shoulder. Everyone froze. The bear didn't flinch. His eyes, still partially open, flicked toward her. He let out a long, slow breath, like something had finally let go inside him. It was the first time he had ever felt a gentle human touch. She held it there for a moment, silent, steady, letting him know he wasn't alone. All right, she whispered, let's get you home. The stretcher team moved in. It took 5 people to lift him, carefully sliding the canvas beneath his body, strapping him down without twisting the wounded leg. Suddenly a misstep. One rescuer slipped in the mud, nearly dropping his side. The bear jolted, his claws flexing. A panicked shout rang out. Easy, he's still partially awake. Mara stepped in, both hands on his head now, pressing gently. SHHH, it's okay, it's okay. The bear's breathing slowed again. His massive frame relaxed under her hands. Trust, still fragile, held with renewed effort. They lifted and moved. It was a slow, brutal hike out, every step a battle against terrain and time. Branches clawed at their gear. The stretcher dipped and swayed, but Mara never left his side, one hand on his fur the entire way. An hour later, they reached the transport van. Medical equipment buzzed inside. Heating pads waited. Roman 4 bags hung ready. As they slid the bear inside, Mara glanced back at the forest. Where silence had once screamed with pain, there was now only rain. She looked down at her hands streaked with mud, blood, and fur and whispered, more to herself than anyone else, "We got him out." The van rattled down the washed-out forest road, its tires struggling for grip on the mud. Slick track. Rain slammed against the windshield in sheets, wipers barely keeping up. Inside, the bear lay on his stretcher, shivering under blankets and warming pads. Monitors beeped softly from the mobile med unit rigged in the back. Mara sat beside him, watching every reading. Pulse is irregular. Ava warned, peering at the screen. He's crashing again, his temps dropping, that leg's bleeding more than expected. The smell of blood and wet fur filled the air. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the trees. Stopped the van. Jonas shouted from the passenger seat. The vehicle skidded as the driver slammed the brakes. Just ahead, a wall of mud and debris tumbled down the slope, blocking the narrow path completely. Tree limbs, rocks, and soaked earth spilled across the road like a barricade dropped by the forest itself. A landslide, everyone scrambled out. Rain pounded them sideways. The trail back was washed out too, no easy way forward or back. Jonas swore under his breath, "We're trapped." Inside the van, the bear let out a strained, guttural groan. Mara rushed back in and froze. The bear's body convulsed. He was seizing. "Ava," Mara shouted. "He's crashing." Now, the medic dove in, ripping open an emergency kit. "We need to get a line in now." Mara, hold him steady. The stretcher shook as the bear's limbs jerked. Mara climbed in beside him, gripping his neck, whispering into his fur, "Stay with me. Please, stay with me." Blood soaked through the wrappings on his leg, seeping into the fabric beneath him. The snare wound had reopened in the chaos. His breathing turned shallow, strained. His tongue lolled from his mouth. "We're losing him," Ava said, panic creeping into her voice. Mara looked out into the storm, soaked, shaking, trapped in the middle of nowhere with a dying bear and no backup. Her voice cracked. "He's not going to make it like this." There was a long pause, then her hand tightened on the bear's fur. "I'm not letting him die in the back of a truck." She turned to Jonas. "We need airlift now." He hesitated. "In this storm, call it in. I don't care what it takes. Just get us in the air." Jonas stared at her, then picked up the radio. As he relayed coordinates and made the emergency request, Mara stayed with the bear, hands pressed firm and steady on his massive chest. "We came this far," she whispered. "You're not going out like this. Not here. Not now." The wind howled. Thunder boomed above, and far in the distance, faint but real, the hum of a helicopter responded. The rain hadn't let up. It roared across the treetops, turning the forest into a blur of gray and green. But above the storm, a new sound cut through, a low, growing hum. Jonas looked up, shielding his eyes against the downpour. A red flare arced into the sky. "There!" Mara shouted. "They see us." The helicopter's searchlight burst through the fog like a sunrise. It swept across the treetops, locked onto the clearing, and held. The whir of rotors beat hard against the air as the craft descended, wind and rain spiraling around it in a cyclone of noise and light. 2 figures in orange harnesses dropped swiftly from the side door. Paramedic rangers ready, calm, focused. "We've got one critical." Ava called out over the roar. "Heavy trauma, massive blood loss, wild specimen, sedated." They moved with precision, equipment unloaded, vitals rechecked, stabilization protocols in motion. The bear was strapped to a reinforced stretcher frame, oxygen mask fitted gently to his muzzle. His massive chest rose and fell barely, but it was still moving. Mara helped guide the stretcher toward the hoist. The sling lifted slowly, swaying in the wind. The bear's body looked small from below, vulnerable and still, floating through the storm like something sacred. The second lift was for Mara. As the line tightened, she gripped the cable with one hand and the edge of the stretcher with the other. Rain blasted her face. Her boots dangled high above the trees, but her eyes never left him. Up in the chopper, medics worked fast, surrounding the Grizzly with warmth, saline, sensors, and soft voices. Mara knelt beside him the moment her feet hit the floor. She reached out, brushing wet fur from his brow. He didn't wake, but he didn't flinch. He's holding on. One medic said, just barely, but we've got a shot. Mara placed both hands on the bear's head and lowered hers close, whispering into the space between them, "You're not alone. We're almost there." The chopper banked hard toward the horizon, rising above the storm. Below them, the forest stretched endless and dark, full of traps, danger, and silence. But inside that helicopter, for the first time in weeks, he was safe. Days passed like soft waves. The bear lay sedated and still for the first 48 hours, his body slowly stabilizing under controlled warmth, fluids, and antibiotics. The medical staff worked quietly, moving around him with reverence. Every breath he took felt like a small victory. Mara stayed at the facility, sleeping in the hallway outside the treatment enclosure. She didn't want to leave, not until she knew he was past the edge. By the fourth day, his eyes opened. He didn't move much, just looked around the room with a distant stare, not panicked, not aggressive, just exhausted, suspicious, watching. "Hey there," Mara whispered through the reinforced glass. "You're still with us." She held still, no sudden gestures, just presence. He blinked once, slowly. That was enough. His wounds were stitched. The infected leg was healing, though it would never be the same. Scarring ran deep, but the inflammation subsided. The team kept the enclosure quiet, no visitors, no noise, just calm. Mara entered for the first time during feeding. She sat across the enclosure, cross-legged, a bucket of mashed fruits and meds near her side. He didn't come close. He watched, that was all. She didn't speak much. She just showed up, every day. He started grumbling at the nurses again, low, agitated rumbles when they approached with tools or needles. But he never made a sound when Mara entered. She noticed his ears flicked forward when he heard her voice. That morning, she placed a chunk of fish just a little closer to where she sat. He came halfway. His fur had grown in thicker now, soft in patches where wounds had healed. He limped slightly but moved with more strength each day. The monitors came off. He started responding to his name, not obedience, but awareness. Kodiak, that's what she had named him, a reminder of what he could be again, strong, wild, free. He still kept his distance, until the day he didn't. Mara had been cleaning near his bed, swapping out straw, laying down fresh blankets. She moved slowly, always letting him see where her hands were. As she stood to leave, his massive head nudged her elbow. She froze. He didn't growl, didn't snap, just rested the tip of his nose against her arm for a moment, then turned away. She blinked, overwhelmed. Tears filled her eyes before she even realized they had come. She brushed him gently with a wide-toothed comb. The first few strokes were cautious, testing. He flinched only once, a scar near his spine still tender. She murmured soft apologies, and he rumbled low in his throat, not anger, contentment. By the end of the week, he was sitting beside her, head down, eyes half closed as she ran the brush down his back. A team member peeked in once, stunned by the sight. "He lets you touch him?" they asked. Mara just smiled. "He chose that. I just waited." Outside the enclosure, visitors came and went. Other animals healed, left, returned to the wild. But Kodiak was different. He didn't just need medicine. He needed to believe he was safe, that someone saw him as more than a broken thing. Every small break threw a lick of honey from her hand, a soft grunt when she entered. The way he leaned ever so slightly into her shoulder became part of their unspoken language. He wasn't tame. He wasn't rescued to be kept. He was recovering to return, and slowly, with every heartbeat and breath, the wild was returning to him. The forest was quiet again. Dew clung to the grass. A light mist drifted between the trees, catching the first rays of dawn. The world held its breath. Mara stood at the edge of the enclosure, her hand resting on the gate latch. Kodiak paced slowly behind her, not in fear but in anticipation. His body had changed. The limp remained, but his weight had returned. His eyes were sharp again, focused, wild. He was ready. A small group stood behind them, medics, rangers, volunteers. No one spoke. They knew this was hers to do. Mara turned to face him one last time. She knelt, her voice barely a whisper. "You know the way now. You always did." Kodiak stepped forward, his nose brushing against her shoulder. No growl, no fear, just quiet understanding. She smiled, blinking hard. Thank you for letting me be part of your story." Her hand moved to the latch. The gate creaked open. The forest beyond was endless towering pines, thick undergrowth, streams that shimmered in the morning light. The sounds of wild birds echoed faintly like distant music. Kodiak didn't bolt. He stepped through the gate and paused just beyond it, his massive frame outlined by the rising sun. He turned his head just slightly and met her gaze. Their eyes locked, no words, just everything. Then he walked forward, one step, then another, into the trees, into freedom. Mara stood motionless, watching until the last flick of his tail vanished into the green. The moment was silent, sacred. Behind her, someone murmured, "You did it," but she shook her head gently. He did. She stayed there long after everyone else had left, eyes fixed on the place where the forest had swallowed him whole. The trees swayed, a breeze whispered through the leaves, and in that stillness, Mara smiled not with sadness, but with peace. He wasn't lost, he was home. Weeks later, Mara sat in a small county courtroom, wearing the same field jacket she'd worn the day she found Kodiak. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap, her voice steady as she gave her final testimony. Photos of illegal traps were laid out on a table in front of her, the same model that had torn into Kodiak's leg. The evidence was undeniable. Her voice didn't shake as she described the wounds, the infection, the fear in his eyes. Across the room, the man responsible, a repeat poacher, sat stone-faced. His traps had been found across the forest perimeter, some rusted, some freshly baited. It wasn't the first time he'd been warned, but now, with Mara's video logs and the veterinary records, it would be the last. He was sentenced to prison. More than that, the land was reclassified. Trap zones were shut down, and wildlife patrol funding increased. Warning signs were posted, remote cameras were installed. Quietly, steadily, something began to change. Back at the sanctuary, Mara sat alone on the bench overlooking the pine trail Kodiak had once walked. She opened her weathered field journal and began to write. He wasn't just saved, he was seen, and because of him, the forest is a little safer, for the ones who can't speak, for the ones still out there. She closed the journal softly and looked out into the trees. Somewhere out there, a bear walked free because someone chose to care, and someone else was held accountable for choosing not to. The fight wasn't over, but a line had been drawn, and this time the wild had someone standing beside it. The screen fades from the forest to a close-up of Mara walking alone down a wooded path. The wind stirs the leaves. Birdsong echoes faintly in the distance. Her voice returns quiet, resolute. One gentle touch changed his world. One act of courage gave him a second chance. Cut to footage of Kodiak roaming through the wild, strong, free hole. There are thousands more, waiting in silence, caught in wire, hidden in shadows, forgotten, but they don't have to be. Report illegal traps, support your local wildlife rescue. You be their voice. Mara's voice continues as we see her place a hand on a tree trunk, looking up toward the canopy. You don't have to be a hero, you just have to care and act before it's too late. Like, share, and subscribe to support more rescue stories like this one.